Ecclesiastes 6. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it is common among men. A man to whom God has given riches and wealth and honor, so that he lacks nothing for himself of all he desires, yet God does not give him power to eat of it, but a foreigner consumes it. This is vanity, and it is an evil affliction. If a man begets 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with goodness, or indeed he has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better than he. For it comes in vanity and departs in darkness, and its name is covered with darkness. Though it has not seen the sun or known anything, this has more rest than that man. Even if he lives 1,000 years twice, but has not seen goodness, does not all go to one place? All the labor of man is for his mouth, yet the soul is not satisfied. For what more has the wise than the fool? What does the poor man have, who knows how to walk before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of desire. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. Whatever one is, he has been named already. For it is known that he is a man, and he cannot contend with him who is mightier than he. Since there are many things that increase vanity, or since many words increase vanity, how is man the better? For who knows what is good for man in life, all the days of his vain life which he passes like a shadow? Who can tell a man what will happen after him under the sun? Amen. Thanks be to God. So last week, we talked about living the good life. We asked, what is the good life? We said it's not sitting on a beach supping pina coladas last week, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago we did that. But instead, what is it? Well, we said we broke it down in several ways in the last portion. It's not being dismayed by evil, but it's seeking to do good. It's not living with misplaced love. It's not pursuing instrumental goods. It's not even pursuing and stopping at inherent goods. But it is through goods being lifted to the one true eternal good, to God himself. We said that it was a life that was lived with God in the present. And we have here a continued exploration with some development of the same theme, with a focus now on faith. Though faith is not mentioned, we have to get it kind of reading the text as it states its case negatively. How are we to live the good life? Well, I think we are to live by faith. We're to live by faith. So, first point is this. Without knowing what we are for, the world would never be enough. So that's the negative case it makes. Without knowing what we are for, the world would never be enough. I've got to warn you, the passage is dark. It's really dark, but it's also real. Because we're dealing here with eternity. We're dealing with the use and the future of our mortal souls. God has breathed life, reason, and agency into you. He's given you the power to think, to choose, and to love. And the question is, what are you going to do with this gift of life? You see, without an answer, we could have everything and yet possess less than nothing. You could have everything, possess less than nothing. So first, materially, he says in verses 1 and 2, there is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it is common among men. A man to whom God has given riches and wealth and honor, so that he lacks nothing for himself of all he desires, and yet God does not give him power to eat of it, but a foreigner consumes it. This is vanity, and it is an evil affliction. And you might ask the question here, what does it mean to say that the man has no power to eat of it? This man lacks nothing. He has everything he could possibly desire. He assuredly is able to eat of it. And so what is it saying? He has no power to eat of it. I mean, certainly one day he'll be gone. It will be gone. Maybe moved to the hand of another, to the hand of a foreigner. But while he lives, while he has all that his heart desires, how is it so that he has no power to enjoy it? Well, it seems the problem is he just cannot appreciate all that God has given him. In verse 7, we're told all the labor of man is for his mouth, and yet the soul is not satisfied. He eats, but he is never filled. He drinks, but his thirst is never quenched. And why not? Well, I think verse 12 gives us the answer. The conclusion to the passage. For who knows what is good for man in life, all the days of his vain life in which he passes like a shadow. Why is he unable to enjoy this plethora of riches and of honor, of having access to everything they could possibly buy, everything he could possibly possess? I think the answer is this, because he doesn't actually know in the end what is actually good. He doesn't know what to do with all of this stuff. He doesn't know how to appreciate it, how to make good use of it. And we should really understand this, that we can drown our bodily appetites, our hunger, our thirsting, the desire of our eyes, carnality. We can drown them in satisfaction. We can drown them in giving them everything that they would ever want. But sooner or later we're going to realize this, that the little pleasure we get, the little thrills, the little relief, it never lasts. And it never fills us. And the paradox is that the more we have of the things that we want, the more we come to the awful realization that they cannot satisfy, they cannot fill the soul of man. And we are left with this burning question, what is my life for then? Because it has to be more than this. It has to be more than the stuff that I can hold with my hands, the stuff that I can see with my eyes. We could have everything and yet possess less than nothing. The better part of us turn to what is wholesome. And how many of us secularists say, along with the Christian, that in the end, you know what really matters? It's not money and it's not stuff. Do you know what it is? It's family. It's family that matters, and we'd all agree with that. But look at verse 3. As it takes a fascinating turn, this text. In verse 3, it deals with the wholesome. If a man begets 100 children, and he lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with goodness, or indeed, I think the text probably should be translated, indeed, a stillborn child that has no burial is better than he. A child that never sees the light of day, that is born without the dignity of a burial, is better than the man who has a long life and hundreds of children. Do you see how he shoots a hole in what we thought was true in this world? All right, we're not going to chase after material possessions. Oh, but you know what we will do? We'll make family everything. We'll have lots of children, and we'll have length of days. Oh, well, this is the good life. And yet he says, about as darkly as he possibly could, no, a stillborn child is better off than such a person. How can this be? How could I have marriage? How could I have length of days? How could I have children? And still, a stillborn child be better off? He doubles down, doesn't he? It's not just a passing reference. He labors the point, verse 4. It comes in vanity and it departs in darkness. Its name is covered with darkness. This poor conceived life, it's never given a name. It's never called by its name. Verse 5, it never sees the sun. And yet somehow this child has more rest than the man. This child has more rest than the person who has a very long life, who has lots of children, and who has money to his name and can buy whatever his heart pleases. A stillborn child. what is it talking about? What is Ecclesiastes talking about here? This man's life was filled with goodness, surely. And yet at the same time, what does he say? He has never seen goodness. His soul is not satisfied with goodness in verse 3. Once again, it seems that with all that this man has, the problem is he couldn't appreciate and enjoy any of it. Why? Once again, verse 12. Because he never really discerned what was so good about it. He never knew what it was for. He never really understood what he was for. We need to understand this, that even a relatively good life can be empty. It can be a case of just going through the motions. We read verse 7. The labor of man is for his mouth, and the soul is not satisfied. He eats, but is never satisfied. But you could replace eating here. Please note, you could replace eating here with great days out with the kids. With hugs, with kisses, with laughter, with friendship, with love, with a long and full life. And still, the soul might not be satisfied. His position is so stark here, whether we're talking materially or in the wholesome sense, everything. Having everything in a wholesome material sense, still, it would be better, he says, never to have been born. Now, of course, it's rhetoric. Like, we've got to understand that. There's some sense of poetic embellishment. But can we really justify such brutal, seemingly insensitive and hurtful rhetoric? Can it be justified? Like, we do believe our God is good, and we do believe his word is good, but is it? Is it right to ever talk of things so sacred in seemingly such a, flippant way? We've had a miscarriage. And I know that Anna remembers it. She remembers, I don't know if it's the date of it, the date the child would have been born. Many others too. It's a great evil. Can we justify this? Well, I think we can, if two conditions are met. The first is if it's true, and also if it's warranted. Is it true? Better to be a stillborn child. Well, I think it is true. Why? Because I think to live with so much potential, so much opportunity, and then waste the lot is worse than never living at all. I think if you could ever ask a man after the event, after he had died, I think he would say just as much. You ask a man who had everything that this life could offer, both in the material, both in the wholesome sense, but he never made use of it. He never knew what was truly good. It never led him to the place it was supposed to lead him. He had it all. He came so close, and he lost it all. You think of the rich man who was there in hell, whose tongue cannot be quenched from the burning flames. He had everything the world could give him. He was part of Israel. But there he is in the flames of suffering. You ask that man, would it have been better for him if he'd never been born? He would say, yes, it would. Yes, it would. You don't have to wait to ask a man after he dies. Where does all suicide come from? It is just this thought. The people had so much potential, but they wasted it, they ruined their life, and now there is nothing left to live for. Better to be a stillborn child than to live without satisfaction of soul, without knowing what is good. I think it is true, and is it warranted? Well, I think it's warranted also. Because if we are dealing with immortal souls before an eternal God, there are no words that are strong enough to convey the urgency and the seriousness of this message. In the words of Christ, what would it profit a man to gain the whole world, every possible, every conceivable good, but lose his own soul? You think of Christ's words concerning the archetype of just this kind of person, Judas Iscariot, who lives a good life amongst the covenant people, who walks with the Messiah 3 years, And what does Jesus say? It would be better if that man had never been born than waste the gift of life, than waste the privilege, than waste the opportunities that were afforded to him. Do you understand that the world, marriage, wealth, the things we can possess, length of days, none of it will do us any good, would ever be enough if we don't know what it is for. If you don't know what you are for. There's a genuine tragic paradox that you can have everything and yet have less than nothing. Better to be a stillborn child. So without knowing what we're for, the world would never be enough. Secondly, acceptance will only take us so far. Acceptance will only take us so far. It seems we have a possible solution to the paradox here. And it seems to be something like contentment or acceptance. Now, verse 8 is ambiguous in terms of how it's to be read. What more has the wise man than the fool? What does the poor man have who knows how to walk before the living? Is this more of his cynicism? Is this the voice of despair? Like, what good does it do being a wise man more than the fool? Or is it more hopeful? Is it sincere? Is he asking the question, what is it that separates the two? What separates the wise man from the fool? What is it that the poor man knows? The poor man who has nothing, and somehow he lives well. He lives before the living. Is it that he's asking the question, what sets these people apart? And I think that is the direction to go in. And I say that because of, well, the positive presentation of the poor and wise, which we've mentioned like several times since I preached on it in chapter 4 and verse 13. Better a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who'll be admonished no more. But also because the following verse, again, contains this notion of contentment or of acceptance. In verse 9, better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of desire. And the sense, I think, here is that what separates the wise from the fool, and the secret as to how a poor man could have little and yet still live well, is that they embrace what is set before the eyes. They accept their lot. They're content. The soul is not wandering anymore, looking and searching, but they simply make their peace with what is before them. And so it seems then the answer to the paradox is that of contentment or of acceptance. And there's a lot of mileage to this. If we would stop searching, stop looking to the next thing, stop pondering what is unknown, stop asking the what-ifs, live with a greater appreciation of what is set before us, then surely we would have greater peace. Surely we would have greater happiness than when the soul is always wandering and never satisfied. So far, so good. I think that's true. Life, at least in a temporary sense, gets better if you make your peace with what is set before your eyes, rather than always looking to the next thing. But there's a spanner in the works, because whilst he seems to reach some antidote here to the paradox, he shoots it down. Verse 9 again, this is also vanity, he says, and grasping for the wind. And so what's he saying? Contentment won't help us? I don't think that's what he's saying, actually. I think what he is doing here, in a kind of clever way, is drawing attention to the fact that contentment without faith is mere acceptance. And there's a qualitative difference between the two. Acceptance embraces what is, makes its peace with what is, and it gets us so far. But contentment receives what is as from the hand of God. But because the two are so similar in practice, it is very easy but fatal to confuse them. And so I think if you notice in verses 10 and 11, the tone seems to be that of resignation. I think here is the problem. Verse 10, whatever one is or whatever happens has been named already. So these things have been appointed. It is known that he is a man. And he cannot contend with him who is mightier than he. Resignation. What good does it do to strive and search and gather if God has appointed the times and I can't change a thing? And verse 11, I think, again, ESV's translation is better, since there are many, you can translate it things or words, but words fits better here. Since there are many words, these just increase vanity. How does this make man any better? How is man better off? What good does it do if we multiply our words, if we complain and grumble? It's not going to change anything. In fact, it's going to make us more miserable. Because when we complain and grumble, we draw our attention, we focus on all the stuff that we're not happy about, and it makes us even more unhappy. And so what is the takeaway here? Oh, well, we might as well just accept things. We might as well stop trying to manipulate the times and seasons of life. We might as well stop trying to force a thing, force a relationship, force opportunities that are not meant to be. Now, this is better than fighting with one who is mightier than I. It's better than fighting with what is beyond our control. It's better than fighting with what is beyond our knowledge. But if it stops short at mere acceptance, at mere resignation, it is but a temporary help for a temporary life. If all we ever do is simply accept things, if simply embrace, reconcile ourselves in a stoic way to what is before us, it gets us no further. And in fact, I think we are right back to where we began. And this is the problem. It appears to be contentment, but in the end it is vanity and grasping for the wind, because it reveals itself simply to be a resignation to fate, simply a peaceful acceptance of the things that we can't change. In which case, it once again becomes a life that is not worth living, a life that is less than living. And so what is the answer to all of this? Well, I think it is implied throughout the text, but it's this, that we are to live by faith. Faith is the thing that makes all the difference. Faith answers both of the conundrums here. So thinking back to the first one, the idea that the world and everything in it, the sensual, the wholesome, will never be enough for us without knowledge of what is good, without knowing what we are for, without knowing what any of it is for, is answered by faith. So verse 12 asks the question, who knows what is good for man in life? All the days of his vain life in which he passes like a shadow. Who knows? Who knows what is good? Who knows what we're to do with ourselves? Who knows what we're to do with all of this stuff, with all of these people in our life? Is the answer not implied in verse 10? Well, maybe it's the one who has appointed all things. Maybe it is the one who has named us man. Maybe it is the one who is mightier than I. Maybe it is God. Does God not understand the mechanisms, the pleasures, and the goods of his creation at the appointed times? God does. I think this is the answer. If we want to know what we are for, if we want to know what anything that we possess, what we are to do with the people in our lives, the things in our lives, if we want to know what we are to do with any of this, the answer is to go to the one who is mightier than I. We are to open our ears and our hearts to God. As Christ has taught us, we are to live by faith and not by bread alone, not through the material provision in the material world, but we are to go to the transcendent heavenly world in order to impart the meaning and understanding of what we do with the physical things. We are to live by the words which proceed from the mouth of the Lord. And if we can live a life of faith, of seeking and searching and of resting in God, then we will be given a key to understand and make use of the life that is afforded and allotted to us, whether it is rich or whether it is poor. He will show us what is good. So that's the first conundrum solved. And then what of this idea of acceptance or resignation? Well, faith transforms what is like this temporary step forward but leads no further into a genuine way of life, of meaning and joy. It turns acceptance into contentment. And there is a world of difference between the two. We're not merely accepting that we can't change and that we can't be. And we're not merely giving up contending with the one who is mightier than I, which is vanity and grasping. But by faith, we are resting in one who is mightier than I. We are embracing what is set before our eyes without the wandering of the soul as from an intentional, thoughtful, loving, purposeful, dynamic, and living God. We're not saying in verse 12, who can tell the future? Who can tell what will become of me? Who can tell what will come after me? Let me just surrender myself to fate. We are saying, I entrust my life to the one who is mightier than I, who appoints all things, who holds the future in his hand. Contentment is not resignation. It is relational through and through. It is a happy and hopeful partnering with and sheltering of one's life in the covenant God of Israel, who has vouchsafed our goodness, blessing, and eternity. And it's not easy, but the alternative is so much worse. You can rely on your sight, what you see, what you think. You can desperately try to peer into what only God knows and sees, grasp at what is beyond you, grasp at where goodness lies and what the future holds. Or you can give up, blindly resign yourself to fate, because we're tired of trying to make it work, trying to make things better. But in both cases, these are just defeats. They are a waste of a life. They leave us confounded, without answers, frustrated, discontent, forever unsatisfied, uncertain of where true goodness lies. They are a loss of life. But faith doesn't rely on our sight. Faith relies on God's sight, on what he sees, on how he loves, on what he wills. Faith looks to God to know the good, what we are for, what any of it is for. And God answers faith. He answers faith. He says, you are for me. It is for me. Faith rests in his choice, his judgment, his dispensation of goods. It's not surrender. It's trust. Faith cries out, I trust the one who is mightier than I. Not that I'd stagnate, not that I'd be frozen in time. Not that I would actually make no progress, but that I would go where he will take me, in his own time, according to his good counsel, for my eternal blessing, to his glory. It is faith that transforms this situation. How can we enjoy whatever God brings into our life, material, relationally, any of it? By looking to the one who is mightier than I, who will teach us the good use of our life, will teach us the good use of our relationships, will teach us the good use of the material things he gives to us. How can we ensure that we don't slip into mere acceptance of circumstances, but actually have contentment? Well, faith leads us to trust that these things are from the hand of this intentional, loving, and wise God who has our best interests at heart. We're not resigning ourselves to what is. We are entrusting ourselves to the God who holds our future in his hands, who has intended our good, who has intended our salvation. And so we are to live by faith, trusting in what God sees and not in what we see. Amen.